You know the song at all?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Thank God.
You keep saying you got something for me.
I can't believe this is Frank Sinatra's daughter.
Something
I know,
you
right?
call
So
love,
weird.
but
pretty interesting.
confess,
Just runs in the family.
you've been a messin'.
You know what? His dad actually gave us this recommendation for you, so.
Oh, he did.
And welcome back to episode, what are we on, 22 or 21?
21.
Episode 21 of Backhouse Productions. Our newest guest, Shannon Grove, the senator of the 16th Senate District. I learned today that there's a 16th district and a 16th Senate District. Like, what's the difference with that? Like, isn't it kind of, shouldn't be the same?
It should be the same. It's the 16th Senate District, but with redistricting, I just got elected to the 12th.
Gotcha. Okay,
Okay.
congrats. Woo!
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so I mean, everybody, I'm sure you've done a million podcasts. People ask you, what are the problems we need to fix? But I kind of just want to get to know, like, who you are. Like, why do you pick this career? Like, why does someone get into politics?
Well, I wasn't looking for politics when politics came looking for me. Kevin McCarthy, obviously our congressman, called me one day and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Eating dinner at Mexicali." And he goes, "No, really, what are you doing?" I go, "Eating dinner at Mexicali." And he said, "No, for the next 6 years." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm not doing that." And so my husband and I talked about it. We prayed about it, and then ended up running for the assembly, which is the lower house. There's 80 assembly members in the state of California and 40 senators. And we ran for the lower house, and we won. Before that, I was in the United States. I have a business that I started in 1993. It's a temporary staffing company, Continental Labor. It gives people jobs. The best solution to poverty is a job, and I love giving people a job and an opportunity to provide for their family. Before that, I was in the United States military, served at Headquarters Company 5th Corps in Frankfurt, Germany, and I am the first female veteran elected to the state capitol.
Wow, that is awesome. And you witnessed the Berlin Wall coming down, correct?
Yes, I was in Germany in country when the wall came down between East and West Berlin. I actually, before the wall came down, I used to process travel orders for people to go into East Berlin because you had to have special travel orders and permission to go through there. And then my colonel just called me one day and said, "Hey, type of flight manifest." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, unless I get to go, with all due respect, right?" And he said, "Yes, absolutely, put your name on the list." So we flew over in a helicopter, landed on a plateau, and actually watched the wall come down. Wow. Thousands of people. It was incredible.
That is something amazing.
It was pretty incredible.
What was that, 1987?
89.
89. Oh, I thought so. That was Bush. Bush was in office when that happened. So Reagan was 88, but
yeah.
It was kind of.
So Reagan made the announcement at Brandenburg Gate that said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Mm-hmm. And then 2 years later, the wall came down, or 18 months later.
So was that just all like a series of events, you think? Because the Soviet Union collapsed in 91. Was that kind of like a big part of it?
I think Reagan was a huge part of making that happen. Reagan was a huge part of making that happen. And then you got to think about that wall. The city was divided. It'd be like a wall going up on Chester Avenue. Everybody on this side would live like we do now, and everybody on the east side would live in a communist country. When we traveled back and forth in between Berlin, East Berlin, and West Berlin, they were taught that we were evil people, right? That we did bad things, and they would be afraid to speak to you. You would wait hours in line for food, hours in line for bread, and on the west side, you go to the grocery store just like we do here. So it was really interesting to watch a city be divided in a way where communism was and where freedom lived.
It's interesting because it sounded like that day the world got safer, right? And it was almost like a win for democracy and the Soviet Union collapsing a couple years later. But now you kind of see like the same things kind of rising again.
Oh, I think so too.
And like, I don't know, like you establish Russia, Putin goes into office. He's been there for 20 years. And now you look at what's going on in Ukraine and it's like, gosh, now we're going to almost get into a war where it's kind of crazy. Like how history kind of goes through waves a little bit, like kind of how democracy in 91, the United States, supreme power, right? We're top of the world. Now it's kind of like we're competing against everybody again. Now it feels like we're in trouble. Like we're on our high guard. We have to do something about it. You have China, you have Russia, you have all these nations. I mean, India, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like the world's going to be a safer place than how it's been in the last 30 years.
Well, Reagan said it best, peace through strength, right? If the United States of America demonstrates strength in our military, strength in our economy, if we demonstrate strength, then we're who the world looks to. But if we don't demonstrate strength and we demonstrate weakness or compromise, or, like I really do believe the President of the United States that we have now is compromised with his dealings with China and other things and his son. And so I think Reagan said it best, peace through strength. We got to be strong.
Well, it's influence, right? Like who are the people getting influence? Like everybody's getting influence from something, right? And today it's mostly from our phones, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter. And I mean, TikTok especially, I mean, it's a Chinese-based company. Yeah. And I've been looking at this a little bit, but like in China, the TikTok is so different over there than the TikTok here in the States.
How so?
Like in China, like the TikTok is, informational videos, just like educational, like kind of like advocating towards like getting more lawyers, getting more doctors, getting more astronauts. Mm-hmm. Where like everybody here in the States, like all the kids coming up are only just seeing influencers dancing, just kind of just nonsense, really. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't provide a prosperous nation to keep growing in the right direction. It's almost like they're derailing our entire nation. It's almost like a terrorist threat in a way.
Well, when you think about it, look at our education system. I mean, China focuses on reading, writing, arithmetic, science, technology, those kinds of things. And we're focused on, transgenderism, the things that I don't want to say don't make someone a better member of society, but obviously if you have drag queens coming in and reading to kindergartens, that's not helping them, become, technology based, or that's not helping them with science and everything that you need to learn to be a productive member of society. When you think about it, you look at some of the stuff that's being taught in our education system, and the focus is not science, technology, reading and writing and arithmetic. It's not here in the United States, and it is definitely that in China.
I can attest to the education. Yeah, I think most education's a joke. I mean, even in college, even in college with like all the COVID and everything that's happened with online schooling, it's like no one's really learning anything anymore. It's almost like I just take a picture on my phone, I get all the answers.
Yep, exactly.
It's like there's no problem solving. Mm-hmm. There's no problem solving, and I don't know, like they do a couple tests, every couple years where they kind of like rank all the nations, like where they rank in math, science, and like wasn't the U.S. They were number one in everything in the 1950s.
Not now.
Not yeah.
Not now. As a matter of fact, those test scores for California students and COVID and distance learning and all that stuff, the California students are so low ranking right now. The governor refused to release the results, and it took him almost 6 months to get the results out.
Wow.
Because he didn't want it. He wanted it to come out after the election.
So I guess my question is, what went wrong in the education system? Like, where did we just fall off? What was a decision that was made? What was an initiative that we were trying to do?
I don't think it's like one particular thing. I think it's like that proverbial story about the frog in boiling water, right? You put the frog in water and it boils, and the frog will live for a long time. If you throw a frog in boiling water right away, it tries to jump out or get out, or it dies. So I don't think it was one specific thing. I think it's gradually a lot of things, the way that the education system was changed over the years. I think the left really looked at the education system and thought, wow, we could change the world in 4 election cycles, 4 presidential election cycles. Think that. That's every 4 years. Mm-hmm. So that's 16 years. So you take a kid that's in kindergarten, first, second grade, and then you change the education system, and once that kid gets graduated out of at 18 out of high school and then has the ability to vote, you've changed the system in 4 election cycles. So I think they really looked at that. And I think, and then just like when you said, when you look at some of the online stuff or some of the news channels, when they talk about one of you guys went to Fresno State for a while, played football.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Joseph, you did. There was a teacher online that was getting a lot of pushback, and a lot of the alumni wanted that individual to be fired because of what she was teaching in a government class to her students. And so it's a woke ideology, and when people say woke, that's just the new word out there. But it's a leftist extreme ideology that's in our education system. You guys have to see it.
No, I mean,
I do.
You have to see it.
I see it everywhere. It's just,
okay.
It's like, it's such a touchy issue because it's like we're trying to make people feel more welcome with themselves, but then it's almost like this like backdoor message where it's like you don't have to try as hard, or someone's going to help you back up no matter what. There's no accountability, right? Someone's always going to help you. You're going to get picked up, but you're going to feel accepted. I'm fine with that. That's where it's almost like people don't want to disagree with whatever they're saying because it's like, I don't want to be the person that doesn't want to help someone, or I don't want to be the person that doesn't accept this other person, because who am I to say anything?
But you got to speak.
But truth. It's all the underlying messages that come with it. It's like you say a good, you say you're virtuous, but then you do all these other things that contradicts that. and it doesn't make sense. But then that statement that's there, that's what you stand for, right? The whole message is that carried with everything else that you're pushing. It's hard to look at it and be like, oh, I see what they're doing. But not a lot of people do. Not a lot of people see that.
There was a couple of years ago when I was in the assembly, or actually more than that now. But so I think it was in 2014, they did that, the whole 99 thing, like the 99% thing, the 1%, the 99, and all these college students got around and were protesting the Capitol and stuff. And most of them came from Berkeley. So myself and my staff, we went over to Berkeley to see what it was like, right? Just, it's not that far from Sacramento. I go, let's just go do it. So I sat down with a group of students that were on the on the steps of it was either an auditorium or whatever. And they're like, oh, you're one of the 1%. And so we just had a conversation. Where did you go to college? I said, I didn't. You know, my mom was a single mom. I was raised by a single mom. We didn't have any money. We were very, very poor when we grew up. There wasn't any money for college, so none of my siblings went to college. My sister did at BC for just a couple of months, but there still wasn't even enough money for her to go. So none of us ever went to college, but we've all been pretty successful in our own right. So we started having conversations with people, because that's what you need to do, is have a conversation. You know, people are afraid to have those conversations. And, you know, one guy was like, you know, well, I'm protesting and I'm not going to class. And I'm like, who pays? Berkeley's pretty expensive. Like, who pays? Oh, my dad does. Mm-hmm. So your dad pays for your education that you're refusing to participate in. You know, that says something to me. And he's got an iPad, really nice, like a really nice Apple, you know, laptop and stuff. And we had a 20-minute conversation. He goes, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I just picked up his laptop and walked away. And he goes, hey, you know, here he's making this big statement of how he's going to be part of the 99. But, you know, his parents pay for his entire lifestyle, including, you know, a $4,000 laptop. And so I just grabbed his laptop and started walking away. And he goes, hey, you can't do that. And I go, you know, you said you wanted to give out what people don't have. I know a lot of people that don't have a laptop like that. Mm-hmm. They really could use that to go to college or go to school. And so you just have to have a random, like, truthful conversation with people and not be afraid of it.
Yeah, totally.
It's a situation almost like where everything's given to you. It's like people can't be happy. Like, they always have to find a problem. Like, you can't just someone can't just be content. Like, all right, everything's perfect. Everything's given to me. But I don't like this. I don't like this thing. And they, like, look for problems.
But problems are opportunities to solve too. Like,
yeah.
If there's a problem. We talked about homelessness a little bit earlier.
Well, no, yeah, that's a real issue. I'm saying, like, I'm talking about, like, just like you just said with the Cal Berkeley student. You know, he's trying to find problems in the world. It's like, no, just go be a student, go learn. Like, you're trying to find things that aren't really there.
Well, we have an activist here in Bakersfield. On Instagram, she's an activist here in Bakersfield, and she's activating constantly against the oil industry, constantly saying that poor black communities, brown communities, Arvin, Lamont, all of that stuff, when a lot of those people work in the oil industry and get jobs provided to them, and they get excellent paying jobs that provide for their families. And so we have an activist that, you know, is advocating for poor families, but she, you know, flies daddy's private plane up to Sacramento to campaign against, you know, jobs that are created in these you know, Arvin, Lamont, Shafter, Wasco, poor communities in our area. Or she's taking pictures in her fur coat laying on a beach chair at the beach that her dad has, or, you know, at the beach house. So you are right. You know, I think kids that are given everything in the world tend to try to find a problem that they can solve, and they're not very good at solving problems. Sorry.
I mean, everybody wants to be a socialist until it's done unto them, you know? Like, they don't. It sounds nice. The idea sounds great. Everybody gets the same things, but then once it's like, all right, give me your stuff. Give me your stuff, you're going to get allocated to everybody else here, then it's a problem, right? It's not practical. It's very idealistic, and it's like, it sounds nice on paper, but, like, what are the practicalities of human nature and, like, instituting those rules and laws? I mean, and you can see that throughout the 20th century. I mean, even, I know Germany's fascist, but still, communism and Russia, Maoists and China, and now all over the world. I mean, North Korea. I mean, these don't sound like happy places to me, right?
Exactly.
And, like, it's almost like they're advocating, they're pushing to that direction. I don't understand why.
Well, look at Venezuela. You know, Venezuela.
Venezuela.
You have people that are, you know, out there in the middle of the fields trying to all attack a cow with rocks and stuff because they're starving to death. When you think about it, look at Venezuela. But you look at the Venezuelan government, and they're very wealthy. mean, there are a lot of tendencies of what we're doing here in the United States and in California to move towards those type of governmental policies, and that's why we have to stand up and fight against them. And you guys are doing this with this podcast, educating people. We've got to be able to pass the mantle. I mean, your grandpa, right? He thinks I'm a liberal.
No, he might be a little too right for me. I don't know.
It's like your grandpa. I'm the most conservative legislator in the state, and your grandpa thinks I called him one time. I'll never forget this. I called him one time, and he's a big donor to our party. And I called him, and I said, "Hey," and he goes, "Don't say another word." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "Give me your Social Security number." I said, "All right." So I gave it to him, and he goes, "I'm gonna claim you as a dependent." That's your grandpa, right?
Yeah.
And but he thinks that I'm, according to the state, I'm the conservative legislator in the Senate, most conservative. According to your grandpa, I could be, middle of the road on some things. And but we need people we can pass the mantle to, and that's like your guys' generation, because you can't let it fall apart in your generation. You've been entrusted with a lot of stuff. You've been entrusted with prosperity, a great nation, entrepreneurship. Your grandpa started at nothing, right? Dirt floors, dry dirt carton, dirt floors. And look what you guys have amassed now as a family.
Yeah.
And not only you guys, but the jobs you've created. You've created jobs for hundreds of thousands of people over the years that have an opportunity to buy a home, provide for their family, send their kids to college because of the boldness that your grandpa had. And the Democrat Party, I don't mean to be political, but the Democrat wants to label him as an evil person. He is no way in heck an evil person or done anything wrong. He's created opportunity.
He's misunderstood a little bit. You can say that with him. No, but okay, you're trying to pass laws, you're trying to pass legislation. How do you talk with someone on the other aisle that completely disagrees with everything you believe?
So you do build relationships. I've been up there for, a while, since 2010 with a 2-year break. So you do build relationships. And at first it's hard because you come from an ideology far right, or I do, and then they come from a far left ideology. But for instance, we know that there's a literacy problem here in the state of California. Desperate, especially with our minority communities. So I worked with the most powerful Democrat in the state of California, Senate Pro Tem Atkins, and we passed the Dolly Parton Imagination Library.
I think that's really good, too.
So every child in the state of California, no matter if you're a Campbell or a Smith, and it doesn't matter what part of the state you come from or what part of the, I guess you say, tracts you live by or around, you will have an opportunity to get a book every single month. And it's an age-appropriate book from 0 to 5, so that when you go to school at 5 years old, kindergarten, when you start kindergarten, maybe you'll have already the reading skills that you need. They're all in bilingual, so it's all translated Spanish and English, which is good because we have a lot of Spanish-speaking parents. Even in the Senate, when we have families coming in and they need help with something, you've got a 7-year-old kid translating for the parents. So these books will allow Spanish and English translation so that the parents can read with the kids and see how English, what English words are there as well. So it'll teach the whole family to speak English if they have that barrier. And so you work with people like that. I worked with a lot of my Democrat colleagues on the other side of the aisle to make sure that we stopped a devastating a bill that would have hurt our agricultural community. There was a Bennett bill that was going to be devastating for farmers to be able to put wells on their property in order to be able to grow the food that we eat. This district that I represent is a top 3 food-producing counties in the world. Last I checked, food's pretty dang essential, and we need water to grow that food. So we stopped that bill. So there are things that you can do working across the aisle to make sure that you accomplish things.
Are you always looking for a common ground? You guys try and find something you agree on, or is it just you have an issue, you want to fix it, you go to someone hey, let's get this done?
It's not we don't constantly do that. When I first got elected in leadership in the state Senate, obviously President Trump was in the White House, Kevin McCarthy was in the congressional side of the house. So there were things that the state needed help with from the federal government. One of the things the governor's office came to me about was real IDs, right? So real IDs, they came and they said, look, in 30 days, Californians aren't going to be able to get on a plane because we won't meet the real ID deadline. And I just sent a text message out to my contact at the White House, and he responded back, how much time do you need? And the governor's staff said 3 months. And I go 6 months because I never in a million years thought our governor could put it together in 3 months. And so I asked for 6 months, and they gave it to us. They connected with us with the department in Washington, D.C., and they gave us an extension on real IDs. So and then 3 days later, they came to me again and they said, "Would you do this?" And I said, "Hell no, I'm not. Oh, I shouldn't cuss on your stage."
Oh,
Oh, no,
you're
you're
fine.
fine.
Oh,
You're fine.
and I'm like, hell no.
We were told not to cuss
Yeah.
for you, so yeah, go ahead.
I'm like,
Feel
hell
free.
no, I'm not going to help you do that. So when you can help people, that helps Californians, you do it. And it doesn't matter who gets the credit. I mean, we've introduced legislation that they've stolen right out from underneath us, but it doesn't matter because it still gets passed and it helps Californians. It doesn't matter who gets the credit for it. So when you can help and Californians benefit from it, then you do it. And if it doesn't benefit Californians and it's self-serving on their side, then you do everything you can to try to stop it.
I mean, yeah, it sounds nice. Yeah, that sounds good. It sounds like the actual job of a politician. Like, you're supposed to help the people. You serve the people.
We talked earlier, before the podcast started, we were talking about homelessness and we were talking about tax credits for businesses that take a chance on an at-risk employee. Like, a foster kid. We talked about kids that, are emancipated. They get kicked out, 18 years old, really don't have a place to live. They're sofa surfing. We ran a piece of legislation to try to allow that credit for felons to apply to foster youth. And it went through the building, but it died. It got killed. And the California Teachers Union Association killed it because they were afraid that it would take money out of their pocket if there was a tax credit to allow these foster youth to be able to have jobs. So you have to, obviously we don't have control of the building, so you have to, work within the parameters that you're giving, but you always try to make sure that you try to do the best for Californians.
Here are my thoughts. Okay, so you got Republicans, you have Democrats. What would you say? Do you need Democrats? Like, what would happen if everybody was just a Republican? Would that be a good thing?
No, I don't. You have to have balance. I think government works best with balance, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, out of 40 senators, it looks like they're going to have 32. They have 31. They have 31, and we have 9 on our side. It takes 21 to pass any basic piece of legislation or stop any basic legislation, but it takes 27 to pass a tax increase. So they could lose a percentage of their caucus and still pass tax increases. Like, we can't stop it because they have the supermajority. That's not good for Californians.
No.
It's really not. I don't think it, I'm just being honest with you. It'd be nice if we were in control and had the power, but I still think that there needs to be balance in government, both Democrat. You bring all ideas to the table, and I think government works best when you cooperate together and you make good laws benefiting everyone. What
was the last Republican governor? Because, it sounds like, that's the other way around. Like, most people are Democrat in California. So
Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger. That's what I thought. I thought it was Schwarzenegger, but he's kind of, I don't know, he was out against Trump a little bit, but I guess there's different Republicans now. But okay, so there's Schwarzenegger and then what, Reagan? Is that like the last two?
Yes, there was Schwarzenegger and Reagan. There was Wilson was in there too.
Oh, in between? In
between those two.
So does it go back and forth a little bit, or because it seems like California's been like just Democrat for the last 50 years?
No, not 50, but it did go back and forth. I think Pete Wilson. So it was back and forth, and it went from Democrat to Republican with Pete Wilson, and then went Democrat and then Republican with, well, obviously Gray Davis, and then the states flipped and got Schwarzenegger, and then after that it was Brown and then Gavin.
Okay. Okay, so it's practical to put Republican, Democrat after each cycle.
That'd be nice.
That's the goal almost?
Well, look what's happening right now. So obviously, before on the federal side, obviously before we had a Democrat president, Democrat House, and a Democrat Senate, and then we flipped the House, right? Mm-hmm. So, or we flipped the presidency. And when we got Trump, and so that flipped to the Republican side, and now you had Nancy Pelosi in charge of the House, you have Schumer in charge of the Senate, and you have Biden in the presidency. And then this election cycle, we're going to flip the House, and Kevin McCarthy is going to be Speaker. And when you think about that, having the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives coming from Kern County is going to benefit Kern County and benefit the nation. The Speaker controls the chairmanships. So instead of Adler on judiciary, you're going to have Jim Jordan. So instead of, some, whack job left person that doesn't know anything about agriculture, we're going to have somebody who's a farmer as the agricultural chair. So so there are benefits, a lot of benefits to having a Speaker, specifically Kern County and the nation because of Kevin McCarthy.
I wonder why there's only two parties. Like, why do you think the founding fathers only said there's going to be? I guess there wasn't even a Democrat around. I guess it was like the Whig Party. But like, where do you think they draw the line in the sand? Like, all right, we're gonna have two sides. You have two options to pick from.
There's actually more parties, but those are two.
I mean,
dominant
independent.
parties.
Yeah. So if you're an independent,
no party
yeah.
preference, Green Party. There's a lot of parties, but the two dominant ones are the Democrat and Republican parties, and I guess it's just ideology. I think. Even with our kids, we have 5 kids, and one of them didn't agree with what we were saying until she got a job and started a business and started paying taxes, and she flipped to Republican just like that. You know what I mean? So when you look at, and when I go talk to high school kids and tell, high school kids, I said, it's important that you participate in the election process. I mean, think about it. If you're talking to a group of sophomores and freshmen at high school, and they say, politics doesn't matter to me, would it matter to you if we passed a law that says you couldn't get a driver's license till you're 25? Right? Yep. So you have to think about issues that face you in that age group, but also your parents. Like, what do your parents face? What are some of the tough issues? I mean, water, obviously, for farmers is a big issue, but also, just being able to hire somebody. I mean, what do you think about the government giving guaranteed income of $1,000 a month? That's going on. Well, how do you get somebody to go to work? What do you think about the government passing a law that says you have to pay minimum? Well, they've got a council, and the council has said they're going to have $22.50 an hour for minimum wage. Well, how does that affect business in general? Some people think it won't affect them, like Spencer says, it won't affect us because we only have 3 restaurants, but it does. If Baja Fresh or In-N-Out or whatever's paying $22.50 an hour, you're not going to keep your hostess or your servers. We stopped at a place on our way home yesterday from Sacramento. We were coming back from Redding, and we used to stop all the time, but I haven't been to Sacramento because of the election. You're home for 3 months. And they were only doing takeout only. And we asked her, why? What happened? And was it COVID? And she goes, no, you can't get anybody to come to work. They just don't go to work. If you're getting a guaranteed income check from the state of California or the federal government or unemployment that continues to go on, how do you get people to go to work?
But in their eyes, like the younger people's eyes, I mean, because younger people mostly lean left, why do they lean there rather than the Republican Party? What's so?
You tell me. I'm 57. You're young.
I mean,
so.
you have to have an idea though, right? It can't just be. You have to know there's something.
System.
You think it's the education system just influencing the go left?
I just think it's the education system influencing their ideology, right? I mean, when was the last time? Think about it just for a second. But when was the last time? Oh, you guys probably went to Garces though, huh?
Yeah.
Did you? Okay, so in traditional public school. Right? We used to do the prayer and the pledge, right?
You can't do that. You can't pray anymore.
You can't pray anymore in schools. And what schools stand up when the bell rings and does a Pledge of Allegiance anymore?
None, I'm guessing.
Yeah, there's no patriotism. When's the last time you guys went to constitutional class? It might be different in Garces, but think about that in the traditional public school system. Constitutional class. You get these school books that you got, and you've got, stories of, discrimination and ideology of how somebody who is different, and we've always had kids that have been different than us going to school. And we've all got along and made it where we are today. Mm-hmm. But they actually have curriculum and stuff that's teaching. I think it's teaching people that you're bad because your parents were successful and let you go to Garces, and you guys, came up with the idea of the podcast. Nobody gave it to you. You guys came up to it. You set it up. You're in your garage. You clean. Did you hire?
We're in the studio.
Yeah,
actually.
Studio. Oh, sorry. In the studio. Sorry. But think about when I walked in, you said, what happened to everything else in here? And you guys said you took it all out. Did your parents pay for somebody to move it out, or did you guys move it out?
We moved it out.
Yep. Okay, so you guys set this up. So why should you be penalized for going above and beyond and doing something that you want to do just because somebody else doesn't?
Yeah. But couldn't the right do the same thing then with influencing people? Like, what is so enticing about what they're pushing than what you guys are pushing? Like, because you guys could do the same thing, right? Like, is it just because it seems like it's rigged? It sounds like they're rigging something, but I don't want to believe that. I really don't want to believe that. Like, is there anything you guys can do to actually be effective in influencing younger people that kind of understand the same side that you're preaching, or not preaching, but saying?
Yeah, I would hope so. We're going to college campuses. We're going to, I spoke, like I said, at Berkeley. I've spoke at Pepperdine. And when I spoke at Berkeley, there was a guy at the front row. This is a few years ago, but he was in the front row, and he's like, you just poison people with your oil industry and, farming, and, they, all this pesticides, all this stuff. So he has just, where did he get that, right? Where he got it from someplace. And then I answered his questions, and I kind of went off to somebody else, and he piped up again. And I finally just said the same thing as you guys. I mean, your tennis shoes, are you happy with that? These headsets, your iPhone, that helmet sitting up here, those buttons on that shirt, the football that you guys play with, it's all a petroleum byproduct. If you want to get off the petroleum industry, throw all that stuff in the garbage, go outside the back of this house, take a crescent wrench, turn your natural gas valve 1/4 inch to the right, and live the way you choose to live without the benefits of petroleum. And if you don't, and you enjoy those things like the microphone, the cord, the plastic, that TV camera, if you enjoy all these modern technologies that make us not a third world country, then let's support the industry that makes that happen.
So their whole thing's the environment, then that's the answer. Or I guess that's the explanation to everything they're saying. It's like, save the environment.
Save the environment. But think about it. So we produce 70% of the state's oil here. We produce, like I said, the 3 counties, Kern, Tulare, and Fresno, top 3 food-producing counties in the world. And they don't give us water. We produce 70% of the state's fossil fuel, like the energy for the state's fossil fuel. What we don't get here, we import from Ecuador. In Ecuador, they bulldoze down the rainforest and they move indigenous Indians out of their homes. They put all this oil on ships. It comes over here. It burns 27 million metric tons of carbon emissions. And we don't bulldoze down the rainforest. We're not moving indigenous Indians out of their home. So why aren't we producing it here? It's because it's NIMBYism. It's like, they can say, well, we shut down the oil industry and, we're being safe and we're being clean and we're being this. You're not. You're bringing that stuff from Venezuela and from Ecuador and Iraq. You talk about the LGBT community. They hang people for being gay in Iraq.
Why not say the same
Saudi
things
Arabia,
about them?
Yeah. So and we pay them millions of dollars, billions of dollars. You just brought up Russia earlier in the Ukraine, right? Mm-hmm. So Russia invades Ukraine, and they pass a resolution in the state capitol, and they're like, Slava Ukrainian, support the Ukrainian community. And on the other hand, they're sending $5 billion to Russia to bring us oil because they won't let us produce it here. So you're funding the war against Ukraine. You talk about hypocrisy.
Yeah.
We talked about homelessness, and if we could just get the message out that, it's the policies. Before you used to get arrested for doing drugs, you go to jail, 3 days, you detox, probably a rough 3 days. You stay there for 60 days, and when you got out, you were clean, and you had an opportunity to be successful. Now you can't get arrested for using drugs, so you're constantly on the street, and you can't get out of the cycle.
This might be the problem. Okay, how can you get what you just said right now and have Quavo say that? How can you get Quavo to say that? How you can get like a rapper or an actor to say the same things you're saying? It's just not sexy. Exactly. He's getting killed right now.
Killed. Anything. Yellowstone. I love Yellowstone. I have a shirt that says somewhere between Beth Dutton and Proverbs 31. There's me, right? So I love Yellowstone. We watched it last night, and then all of a sudden, nothing on Twitter or Instagram today. It's all about, that's a red state thing. That's a right-wing thing. Mm-hmm. It's against the environmentalists, indigenous people, and everything. And it's not. It's like there can never be an opposite opinion about what those people think. There's no challenge in opinion because, number one, if you do it, like you said, people don't want to be labeled as that person. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do it, then we continue to go down a path that we're not all willing to go down.
So I guess how do you put that in a present and show people that, like in a nice way, without them saying you're the problem? I really don't, because I'm sure there's faults on the right as well.
Yes.
There's obviously faults. I mean, you can't agree with everything, right?
No, I don't.
You can't. But I don't know where you can go where you can get a generation of people to kind of like shift their value system a little bit, because it's almost like morality is kind of just gone, right? There's no moral system. There's no moral compass to tell you what's right from wrong. And it's like it's that rejection of like traditional values where you're kind of making up everything as you go. That's why everything's like, I want to be like Zay. I'm a Zay-zer. You know what I mean? Like you can make these things up, but it's in actuality, it's not real. It's not there, because once you reject any value system, you have to make up your own. So how do you make up your own? It's going to be make-believe. It's not going to be like anything that's been grounded for the last 3,000 years of human tradition. That's like
changes.
It
changes.
You change on the dime. You can make anything out of thin air. That's why crypto's so in right now. That's why NFTs are in. That's why the digital space is so in, because it's not real. So I don't know. So I mean, if it's almost like if you're trying to play the game with truth and like what's actually matters, it's like that's not what people are craving. Like they don't want those solutions. They want something that they can make up in their own head that fits their own narrative, that fits their own story, I guess. And I don't know. I guess in kind of just to summarize it up, it's just the Republican Party. It's not sexy. It's not sexy. I don't know. Like You think Republican, you think like an older person. You think like a middle-aged white person. Or you think the Democrat Party, you think of everybody, all diversity, all races.
Think Kevin's done a good job recruiting Latina people. We've got, a lot of more Latina women elected this time than we ever had before.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Asian women that have been elected. He focused on military veterans. So I think that, the message is out there. But when you think about it and you go back to the foundation, I mean, Lincoln was a Republican and he freed the slaves, right?
Yeah.
When you think about the foundation, they've stole the message somehow about this country, and they turn it into something different. And so you're right. We need to be better and more effective communicators. I don't agree with the fact that we're not like sexy.
Well,
I
no,
guess.
it's just like what makes younger people choose the left. Like, why do they always go there? Why do they lean primarily there?
Because they're influenced by their phones, and
Yeah.
they have all the social media followers, the celebrities. They're all influenced by the left, and they're wanting to just push that out because the kids are on their phone 24/7 more than they talk to anyone else.
I agree with that.
But
I
my
agree
thing
with that.
is they like the right could do the same thing. Like, can they not do the same thing?
They can, but I feel that the left has more of a handle on Hollywood and
The
everything.
influencers.
Yes, exactly.
The influencers.
And I don't think they'll switch because they're getting paid so much to say what they're saying.
So the piggyback, what you said with Lincoln, I mean, the Republican, but like then the Democrat Party, they just really leaned into social services, like helping, like FDR, like.
Well, go back to like, I don't want to say Little House on the Prairie days. Those people watching probably don't know what that is.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
but go back to the days where, like, if your neighbor was hurting, then you guys got together and you helped your neighbor. Like, if somebody got hurt, you helped them raise their barn. Now it's been relegated. The church used to be really influential, and the community used to be really influential, and now it's all relegated to government. And government is inefficient about doing anything. I mean, what would your listeners think if they knew that the governor of the state of California paid $54,000 a year for a tent? That's the average cost of providing tents to homeless people. You guys go camping at all?
Yes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. Do you sleep in a tent?
I've gone once or twice.
Okay. So how much do you think a tent cost?
$100.
$100. The governor of the state of California used our taxpayer dollars. It's $54,000.
For one tent?
One tent every year. If you take the cost of the tent program and you divide it by how many tents were distributed to the homeless so they could have some type of shelter, because California has over 50% of the state's or the nation's unsheltered, right? If you do that, it's $54,000 a tent. I mean, you guys, you could get together with 10 of your buddies and solve the homeless crisis, I would think, for $54,000 a person.
Why do you think they're doing that?
What do you think they're doing?
Like,
what?
there's got to be like a reason why he would do that.
Well, I
is
think
it
there's a
is
lot
it
of
purely all
people-
selfish, or is it just he believes something that this is going to help people better than what you think?
No, I don't think
You don't think
that's
that?
it. No, I don't think that's it. I think there are a lot of people making a lot of money on this problem that we have, and it's not going to be solved anytime soon with the people in power, because there are a lot of people making a lot of money. If I gave you a contract as the governor of the state of California, like Gavin Newsom did, and you're my buddy, and I gave you a contract, and I gave you enough money for $54,000 for, I don't know, so let's just call it 600 tents. Are you going to want that contract back again?
I don't know.
Not you, maybe.
Yeah.
But the guy making several $1 million a year is going to do it. Mm-hmm. Look at the PG&E crisis. You guys hear anybody complaining about PG&E bills going up? You have the heat wave. You got power going out. The CEO of PG&E makes $50 million a year. $50 million a year, and they can't figure out how to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're making $50 million a year, I mean, I'm not opposed to people making money because I'm a Republican. I think if you can make as much money as you want. I'm not opposed to Jeff Bezos, Dolly Parton, anybody making money, right?
Yeah.
But you should be able to do your job and make sure that the person down the street making minimum wage, when they flip that switch, has power in their home.
everybody has the same necessities to
Yes,
live.
to live. Exactly.
No, I mean, I agree with that. But is it hard not to be cynical in your work?
Yes.
Like, you gotta. I mean, are you constantly?
I am cynical.
You're constantly assuming that like everyone's just in their self interest, like are only there to help themselves, right?
It's hard. There's tough days. There are a lot of things that happen where you're cynical. I think the days that hit me the hardest when I'm in Sacramento are the heartbroken days, So, for instance, I met, when we had Prop 47, and you're watching that chick in San Francisco or Los Angeles walking around with a pickaxe on her shoulder or shopping at Walgreens, obviously,
liberating.
Yeah, you should think that. Well, that should be a felony,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Who
yeah.
wants to shop with people carrying a pickaxe on their shoulder?
No one.
So I told staff, put together a list of felonies that are things that are not felonies, like you don't go to prison for anymore because of Prop 47, like smash and grabs, all that stuff. So Prop 47 passed. The people and the governor campaigned on it. So did the Democrats. They sold it to people as safe schools and safe communities. But basically, it just said anything over $950 is not considered a felony anymore. So you can steal $950 a day, and you're not going to jail. You're going to get a little ticket that says, please appear. You're going to distribute $950 worth of drugs, whether it's fentanyl or whatever, and they're going to get a little ticket and say, please appear, and all those things. So we tried to figure out, give me 5 things that I can hit them on. Obviously, the pickaxe thing was on the top of my list. And one of the things they brought me was human trafficking. It is not considered a serious and violent felony in the state of California to humanly traffic women. It's not.
What is it, a slap on the wrist?
No, it's a regular felony. So it's not. So when you go to prison, if you have a second offense, it's not a strike. So let's just say you go to prison, they sent you to 20 years because they found you, like they did the baby face operation in Tulare County, which is in the district. They rescued 13 women out of human trafficking. The youngest was 11 years old. If the way California law works, say you're the perpetrator, you get sent to prison, they're going to give you 20 years because they busted you, and you're a bad person. And you go to prison, you can probably negotiate your sentence down to 10 years and then do 5 years of fire work and stuff and get off on good behavior. So you get out of prison in 5 years for doing that to all those people, including those children.
What's the reasoning for that?
What's Prop 47?
I mean,
Prop 47.
why do they believe that's better to do it like that?
A lot of the Democrats, especially on the Public Safety Committee, if you watch that hearing where we had the human trafficking bill to make it a serious and violent felony, and we had testimony after testimony of these women that had been brutally treated. I mean, it was awful, some of the stories that they told. And when they said that, they told their stories. The response from the Democrats on that committee, one person that's in charge of the committee basically said, and it's not verbatim, but this is word for word, but her response was, there's no evidence to show that locking someone up in prison for a longer length of time makes them a better person. They want to change the penal code so that people don't go to prison. They don't think prison helps people. But Republicans think that sometimes it's about justice and punishment. Mm-hmm. If you traffic an 11-year-old girl and you sell her for sex over and over again, you should go to prison for the rest of your life.
No second chance.
No second chance. Or, I mean, I think you should face a death penalty. But, that's me. And I'm on the right.
So, like,
right?
what?
So not to freak anybody out there.
No, I think some people should.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you say it would be almost easier on that person just to get killed?
Which one?
Just like the person,
human
the human trafficker, instead of like getting the
survivor?
death penalty, like wouldn't it be easier on him? I'm assuming it's going to be a guy. That it would be easier on him just to die right there instead of just serving a 50-year sentence.
The perpetrator?
Yeah, like the person like that's going to get killed. It's almost easier for him just to die, so then he doesn't have to pay the time.
Well, it's not like you're going to get killed. It's not like you have very few death penalties. My bill would actually make it a serious and violent felony, so you could negotiate down your prison term. You get caught. Now, that's the second time. Mm-hmm. You can't touch anybody for the first time. So my bill, basically, you would go to, right now in California, that horrible situation that I just described to you, you get a 20-year sentence, you get it down, you're out in 5, right? Mm-hmm. So my bill, if you got busted again at 5 years out in prison, you went, after you did your, you dropped a nickel in Pelican Bay or whatever it is, and then you went back to doing that, and you got busted again, 11-year-old kid, 12-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever, you get busted again. You can't negotiate down under my bill. You wouldn't be able to negotiate down. They give you 20 years, you're doing 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years. So, but they didn't pass that bill because they don't think that perpetrator deserves that because it doesn't change that perpetrator's life. Well, sometimes it's about justice and punishment that human traffic victim doesn't have to walk into you on the street because they know you're safe in jail and you're not doing what you did before.
So I'm hearing like the tone. It's almost like the divide between the two parties. That's why our country's so like divided right now. It's like just polar opposite sides of the spectrum. It's almost like they want to give people second chances, but you believe that this person has to pay their time. They have to suffer, right? Suffering is necessary. I agree. I 100% agree with that. I don't think if someone's human trafficking, they should not have 5 years. I think you should be there longer. I mean, the fact that you even consider doing that as a part, like something you're going to do with your life, should be punishable. Like extremely punishable.
What about rape? What about rape of an unconscious person? That's not a serious and violent felony. Domestic violence. isn't a serious and violent felony. I mean, look at that guy in New York, beat his wife to a pulp, gets out on a ticket, and then goes home and kills her.
Yeah, that's not.
I mean,
It's
there are differences politically.
Mm-hmm.
There are differences politically between the Republican side and Republicans believe that that you deserve an opportunity, right? And we don't have guaranteed outcomes. If you study hard and you're a straight A student and he's sloughing off and he's partying and doing all this stuff, no, I'm just not.
That's
picking
exactly
on
what
him.
happens
That's
too.
exactly
It's exactly
what
what.
happens, right?
Yeah.
And you get an A and you get a college scholarship for $500,000 to whatever university because you worked hard, and he gets nothing because he slept off. You shouldn't give half of your stuff away because you worked hard. Democrats want guaranteed outcomes. We want guaranteed opportunities on the Republican side. And they made like Prop 47, and they made all this this justice issue on criminal justice. They made it about race. I don't care what color your skin is. You're trafficking an 11-year-old. I want you in prison.
Yeah.
You rape an unconscious person. Rape, because the woman can fight back, is considered a serious and violent felony. But if she's unconscious and she can't fight back, then it's not. Okay, so
It seems like an obvious issue. Like it sounds like
you would think
you're
so,
definitely right,
but
like,
it's not. Oh, I am. Thank you.
No, I mean it definitely sounds that would make sense to me that should be passed, but they just believe this guy is going to change. Like he's going to
being
learn.
in prison is going to change him.
What? So like they just. I don't get what else would he be doing. Like they just let him back out on the streets and he's just going to learn from it.
That's why you have the problems that you have now. They just let you out on the street.
So what do you do with voters? So you're voting these because I mean we vote these people in. We're voting these people in. So what do you say? Like when you bring education down, it's like logic goes away. So it's almost like it all stems from education. It all stems from childhood. How are these people getting raised? What are they learning? What's their influences? Like that's the only way I feel like you could do anything.
I think it's definitely the education system is a piece of it. The college system is definitely a huge piece of it, and I just think that we need to get back to our roots where you're rewarded for not everybody makes the team. If you want to make the team, then you work hard and you make the team. That's just an analogy. But we've got to start focusing on what matters. And government can't keep dictating that you guys get a job this is a big deal again with your grandpa, you guys get a job and they're determining your wage. The wage should be determined between you and your employer based on your skill and ability for that job. You shouldn't be able to walk into a job just because government has said you're going to make $25 an hour. You may not be worth $25 an hour, and you have a product to get out. And when you don't show up, they give you unemployment or they give you a guaranteed income of $1,000 a month. So, Stockton's participating in that now. So it's already starting in California. They're doing pilot programs. I mean, drug dens. My solution to drugs on the street, get off drugs, lock them up, give them 60 days to detox and get clean, and then try to be a productive member of society. The Democrat solution, and again, I'm right wing. A lot of Republicans don't agree with me locking people up, but I think it's the best chance that we have. The Democrat solution on that is to provide state-funded drug dens so that you can go get injected with heroin by a qualified person that isn't going to let you to have an overdose. Who wants to pay for that? I don't want to pay for that.
It makes sense. It actually makes sense why younger people like lean left more because it's almost like, okay, yeah, make your bed, or someone's just going to do it for you. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Like with Jordan Peterson, what he said, that's what I'm referring to. Like, it just doesn't sound fun. The truth hurts sometimes, and it doesn't it's not fun to listen to it. Like, I don't want to, like, that's, I mean, that's, in my head, that's why I think most people lean left. It's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be held accountable. I'm fine with just getting a paycheck and just doing whatever I want to do. But it sucks because it's like, it doesn't make a better society, in my opinion. I don't think it does. You need to have your people productive. And if they're not productive, we're only going to get dumber, and things are only going to get worse.
I mean, if everything is handed to you and you don't know how to, if you don't know how to make it work, like if you don't have the failures in life, the struggles, if you don't overcome obstacles and get successful and learn from your mistakes, you can take it like Apple. You said everybody's on your phone that's young. They hire people that will make mistakes and fail. And the reason why they do that is because they want people to fail. Because if you're in a safe place, you're not getting the most advanced technology. Like, who would have thought you'd ever turn a phone into a camera back when flip phones or bag phones? You know, you guys
remember those?
that. Flip phones.
Flip phones a little bit.
Yeah, flip phones. But think about it. But now you have all of this. Who would have thought you'd get instant, emails and everything that you have on your phone? But you had to have people like try big things, right? In order to fail several times and go, that didn't work, but maybe this will work. And so even Apple sees that. But again, Apple very left-leaning. And I'm not picking on Apple, but very left-leaning. And when you look at companies, the governor had a thing about the windfall tax for oil companies. They're saying, oh, it's all their fault because the taxes are high. And I wrote a letter and I'm like, dude, look in the mirror, right? Cap and trade, underground storage fees, state taxes. State taxes, that bill they passed, are going to go up into perpetuity. Your registration and your gas taxes will go up into perpetuity. There's no stopping it. Every year it's going to go up. And so it's their policies that create these messes that we're in, but how do you effectively communicate that to the younger generation and individuals that continue to put these people in office?
Yeah, you don't. You just keep telling them the same thing.
Exactly. And you know what? And this is a great chance to reach out to those people and maybe flip their mind on what they think.
No, not flip their mind. Just to I think people just have an open mind. Like, just be open. Like, they're hearing different things, right? Like, you can 100% disagree with everything you say, but just not like just shut you down. Like, I don't think people should be shut down, because I think freedom of speech is a big thing. I think dialogue matters. I think having conversation matters. Like, I think it's okay if you're a Democrat. It's okay if you're a Republican. Like, your ideas are your ideas, but I don't think you should be condemned for them. Right.
Exactly.
But where do you ever draw a line? Is there a line where you draw where someone's just like, someone's getting human trafficked and I think they shouldn't go to prison? Should they be shut down?
I think anybody has the right to freedom of speech, right? That's protected under our Constitution. But I think government functions the best when you can go toe to toe and voice and even argue your opinions or debate your opinions with the person that you stand adamantly against, right? Adamantly against their ideology. But government works best when you can debate those issues instead of just being shut down. Instead of just being shut down.
Yeah.
I think that works best.
I think so too. So okay, what
I hope you don't lose any followers.
Oh no, it's all right.
You had me on.
No, it's all right. We're open to talk to anybody. That's the thing about that. It's like, we don't care. Like, we want to have conversations. Like, that's literally the only thing we're here for. Have conversations. But what are your thoughts on Kanye?
So I actually got to work with Kim Kardashian in the Capitol a couple of years ago because we were working on, a criminal justice bill. There was a bill that didn't make sense. Again, I'm a right-wing Republican, and I'm not ashamed of that. But there was a bill. Scott Budnick, he's the producer of the Hangover series. You guys ever see that series? So he came up and he talked to me and he goes, "Look, this is a problem." And he brought a problem to me on the criminal justice side. And his reasoning for coming to me is, if being the most conservative legislator, if he could get me, he could get every other Republican on this side, because I give them cover, if that makes sense in the political world. So he brought me a bill and he said, and I didn't know this. I mean, you only know what you know, right? So you only make decisions based on the information that you have. And he brought me a bill, and it was basically, if you are 17 years old and 364 days, and your birthday is tomorrow, and you commit a crime that is considered a felony. This is another issue in California that needed to be fixed. It's not that way now, but it was when I was in the assembly. If you committed a crime, let's say you shot somebody and that person died, you're going to prison for life. If you get sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, if you're 17, 364 days, you got life without the possibility of parole. If you were 18 and above and you committed that crime, then you got life without the possibility of parole. You could go to the parole board in 7 years. But you couldn't do it if you were under the age of 18. So he brought that situation to me, and she was part of that coalition of people that came. So Kim Kardashian, and so she brought that information forward. To me, that's an unjust law. I mean, it's an unjust law. I do believe in redemption. I do believe that people can change, and if you can prove that you've changed. So I listened to these people in front of me, and one kid said, he was 20 now. When we had this conversation, they were older, but he committed a crime. He drove the car when they shot somebody in Los Angeles. It was a gang violence shooting. No reason. They showed up on their territory. They're blue, red, all this garbage that you have to deal with when you're dealing with gangs. And no reason why to take someone's life. But this guy drove the car, and I'm like, okay, what's your deal? And it's a longer story than this, but we have a short amount of time. But and the middle guy goes, I was the guy that pulled the trigger. I stopped a beating heart. And I thought, wow. And then these are all both young when they did it. And that's what the gangs do, is they get these young people to commit these crimes so that they don't have to serve time in prison. And then you have this other guy, there's an older guy there, and he's twisting his hat, and he's like maybe in his 50s, late 50s. And he goes, if programs like this were available, then these kids would have an opportunity, and my son still may be alive. So that was the father that those two kids killed. And if he can have forgiveness, you know what I mean, and believe in redemption. So I guess if there's redemption for somebody who's over 18, why is there not redemption for somebody who's under 18? Mm-hmm. So we actually worked on that piece of legislation, and we got it passed. So when you think about, and normally Republicans are all about, you know, criminal justice. You do the crime, you do the time. Yeah. But that was a bill that needed to be, that was a piece of legislation that needed to be fixed. So you do work on things that, I don't know, that, you know, are uncomfortable to work out. And then I come home and I get hit from the right. You let these people out of prison, you know, da-da-da-da. And you don't. It's just, it's making things right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So are you saying with Kanye, a second chance? Oh,
second chance. So look at Kanye. So look what happened to him. I mean, he was beloved, artist, the whole bit. Mm-hmm. And then he's like, wow, Trump made sense with his criminal justice reform. That's where it all started. Trump was like, these people in jail for these small crimes of marijuana, just, you know, because they're black and they're being arrested and all this stuff. Trump fixed that. I mean, he's the one that fixed that. And when Kanye said, oh my gosh, Trump, everybody went ballistic on him. And now, you know, he's got these issues.
Yeah, that was
cancellation issues.
Yeah,
right?
Cancellation issues. Yeah.
Look at Twitter. Elon Musk buys Twitter and all the advertisers, I'm leaving. Why? Because they're going to give you an opportunity to debate issues, and it's not going to all be one side where people agree with you.
Yeah, you got to pay $8 a month though. That's a problem. That's an issue. Wait, wasn't there something where
it's not free?
Yeah, it's not free. It's a utility. No, but what's can't you like pay to get verified now?
Yeah, it's something like that.
See, I don't like
check
that.
Mark or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So it just seems like everyone gets a medal. Mm-hmm. That one sounds like that to me. Everyone gets
so?
If everyone gets verified, it's not even cool to get verified.
Why?
So it's
Didn't Twitter let somebody named Jesus Christ be on the Twitter page for wasn't it theirs? And
I don't think he was verified. Yeah, the account wasn't.
Then when they verified that it really wasn't him, they kicked him off.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I don't even.
But do you think, so we have a difference of opinion. Do you think that people could just sign up as BC Helmet and then just attack the BC football team? Think about it.
I've had friends who've done it. It's kind of funny. Well, see, that's the thing. We're in a sphere where it's there's no there's nothing physical you can touch at Twitter. It's just ideas.
Right.
It's kind of just a sphere of just
but
whatever.
One side ideas.
Yes. Yeah.
So why can't you have both sides?
I don't know.
I mean, think about it, for instance, and I'm not defending Trump, but I
don't think the president should be blocked.
Yeah, totally kicked off. Why can't he have his own opinion?
Yeah.
Why was he kicked off? Why was, I meet people all the time. It's like, I'm in Facebook jail because I posted this. Mm-hmm. I posted that doctors should be able to say what they want, and she got put in Facebook jail because now there's a new rule in California, a new law that says, doctors can't give out misinformation. Well, who's determining what the misinformation is? Right? So if a doctor says, hey, you got COVID, I'll give you ivermectin, or I'll give you a Z-Pack and this, or whatever, and the governor and his team think that's misinformation and you should still get vaccinated and all those things. And I know that's a touchy subject, but the bottom line is that there should be a difference of opinion regardless of what the subject is. If Nancy Skinner wants to go on and advocate for human traffickers to be able to not be put in prison because she doesn't think it changes them, and I want to go on and advocate thinking that guy should go to jail for the rest of his life because he's a menace to society, and he's trafficking young girls, and we should be able to debate those issues. But on these social media platforms, not on this particular subject matter, but I get in Facebook jail or Twitter jail, and she gets to have her free speech. It should be a free speech issue, but it's a private business.
Didn't Trump though? He got blocked off of Twitter because of the riots on January 6th. Isn't that kind of like a part of it? Because it's freedom of speech until something is called for action. You can't say fire in a theater,
right?
So if something actually happens from the things he's saying, kind of ensuing that's why they were there. You can say whatever, what aggravated those people to actually go through and break through the doors, but his message kind of sounded like, all right, we need to do something to save our democracy.
He did have a pretty strong message, and I'm not saying that January 6th wasn't an important or a significant day in history, but people are paying $7 a gallon gas. World War II veterans on a pension can't afford to have food for the rest of the entire month, and they're trying to get food bank, go to food banks to get their money, which is a very prideful thing for them. You've got people that make minimum wage. Like in our community, it's interesting that Kern County, we have more millionaires per capita and more poor people per capita. So we have a wide, diverse population here, either on the economic level or it doesn't matter. We're very diverse here in Kern County. So if there are people in your community that are, when we did this campaign, people weren't interested in January 6th. They were worried about, diapers or gas.
Yeah.
Making sure that your kids got an education. Can your kids go back to school and not do distance learning? Are they going to have to, can they walk to school safely because of all the homeless people on the street or the crime that's on our street? I went to Kohl's the other day and I was at the return line and this group of guys just came in and started grabbing stuff and walking out. And I looked at the lady and I go, what the heck? And she goes, they didn't really hurt people, but they're here 3 or 4 times a week. It's like, who lives like that? Why is that even allowed? So people are worried about those issues. I'm not saying January 6th wasn't significant. It was. But you don't block the president of the United States. You don't. And you don't block a difference of opinion. They wanted to shut him down and shut his stuff up. But there should be dialogue on both sides.
Yeah.
You should have, you guys say you let everybody on the show, right? You should have dialogue on both sides and let your listeners listen to both sides and say, yeah, that makes sense on that side or it doesn't on this side or whatever. I even flipped you on an issue.
Yeah. It's interesting. You get to actually see people, listening to you talk, it makes sense why there is such a divide, though, because there's just such a big disagreement.
What does that mean?
Just hearing you talk and just saying the things you're saying, the other side is so opposite. Oh. It's how do you come together? Because we're all citizens, right? We're all living in the United States. We're all trying to make this country the best place in the world. Where do we find any common ground that get anything done?
But we're all creatures of our environment, right? We're all creatures of, for instance, I had a legislator, I was fighting with one of my kids on the phone. We have 5 kids, right? And we live in Kern County and we live rural. One went to Fresno State, one was going to, college here in town, different jobs. We have 5 kids, and I'm probably not describing anything that you guys don't already have in your family. So I'm on the phone fighting with the youngest daughter because she wrecked her brother's truck and she wrecked her car. And then I took the train up. She's telling me, hey, I'm gonna take your car. And I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're responsible. So I'm fighting with her. There's a legislator in Los Angeles that was listening to the conversation in the lounge where we were at. And she says, I hung up and she goes, you guys are a 3-car family? I go, we're a 7-car family. We got a truck that goes on the ranch. We got a truck that my husband drives. We got my car and we got 5 kids. We're a 7-car family. And he says, and she goes, oh my God, it's like you guys are the whole cause of global warming. But she lives in a 26-block area, her district, right? And I drive 2.5 hours or 5 hours to Needles. But she grew up in that 26-block area of Los Angeles. She's never even had a driver's license. So her thought process on the way people live is different than mine. I came out of I was at a hearing one time, and Bonnie Lowenthal and I said this on Jazz McKay one time when it happened, Bonnie Lowenthal from Long Beach, she walked in, she sees me, and I was the trigger because she's in transportation, and Joseph Gallo was up there fighting against the high-speed rail. And she's like, I've had it with your people. I'm going to boycott them and buy canned food. She doesn't know that food coming from the field goes into a can to go to a grocery store. So we're all surrounded by who we are as, where we grow up and our influencers and who influences our life. So that's what it is. It's just as easy as San Francisco. I was late coming to the Senate one time and I walked in and here's San Francisco Senator Scott Wiener talking about a job creation bill for women that will get women out of poverty and it will help women not have to depend on men. And I'm thinking, wow, that guy has a job creator bill? So I get on a laptop and Google what bill it is. It's sex work. It's legalizing prostitution. That's his answer for women to not have to depend on men so they could set their own hours. They could take their kids to school. He's talking about this bill like it's the greatest solution to poverty for women. And never in a million years would I support that bill. Because
it goes into morality. Why would you let it? I don't know. They could just do it on OnlyFans too, though. That would be a lot easier. They don't have to really go into the streets. You just take a picture on your phone and you can make $1 million.
Wow.
I mean,
didn't know
you've
that.
heard of OnlyFans, right?
No.
See, that's
the difference.
You got to be more like it's got to be like you got to be in tune. Like, why are people leaning? Like, why like, it's just easier to make money? Like during COVID, like
And what did you say it was?
like OnlyFans. So like girls,
Look at my staff is like, don't go there. Yeah. Look at even Eduardo. He's like, don't go there.
look, I'm not saying that's wrong. Like, cool, yeah, make money, but is that okay? I mean, you got to allow that, right?
I don't even know what it is.
So OnlyFans is basically,
Oh, God, here
you
we
get
go.
a subscription.
Everybody's like, they're all laughing and cutting. They're shocking. So, okay, what are you getting me into?
So you get like a subscription, right?
Help, Joe. Okay.
So like, okay, you, I don't know, you can set the price at anything you want. Say I'm a girl, set it $5 a month. If you want to subscribe to my,
Okay, so for the purposes of this conversation, you can identify as a female right now and have that conversation with me.
I don't want
Instantly.
to. I choose not to. I choose not to. I can be a girl.
You can change back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to actually play girls basketball this year for BC.
See, I think that's wrong. That's wrong. Leah Thomas taking that swimming medal I think that's wrong. Go ahead. Go back to your
That's
OnlyFans
insanity.
thing.
No, okay. So I want to set the price. You pay $5 a month. If you're interested, you can pay. And I'm going to post pictures of myself, like revealing pictures, and you can look at them for $5 a month. And it kind of adds up to a lot because you'd be surprised guys want to see that. Right?
Okay.
So it's you don't have to be out in the street. So like creating the job.
So are you saying she's an entrepreneur?
I mean, she's making money. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it's right. See, that's where it's like, it's not morally correct.
So
If
I
you
guess
do-
I would go to the thing is like, is someone making her do that? And is someone else making money off of that? If that's the case, that's wrong.
No, she can do it
If
herself.
she's choosing to do that herself, and that's her choice, and that's what she's choosing to do, and you're paying for it, that's your money, your
Yeah.
choice. If it's a minor, if that person's being coerced or, I mean, you can't make somebody do that. But if it's all self-imposed, that's their choice.
That's
and
on
they're
them.
an adult. And they're an adult.
Yeah.
Right? They're an adult. But don't push it on me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to see that. See, I almost cussed again. See, I'm saying I don't want
You
to
don't
see
have to. You have to pay for it.
Okay, well, I don't want to see that stuff pop up as an advertisement on my Twitter feed or my Instagram feed. Like, I don't want it out there on my stuff or my kids' stuff. But if that person chooses, I guess that's where I have a problem with a lot of the stuff that happens is that it always ends up in your home or in your school books or anything like that when it shouldn't be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's mostly underground. I don't think you're going to see that anymore.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you haven't heard of it.
Well, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, okay, go to the same thing. Like, so should that person be able to go to the schools and kindergarten and advertise, hey, you guys can do this if you want to?
No.
Okay.
No, I would not like that.
Okay.
That would not be good.
But if it's
I had
a grown
daughter.
adult making decisions for themselves and that's the way they found to make money,
That's on them.
that's on them and that's their choice. But they can't be forced into it. I mean, and they can't be coerced into it, and it can't be required. And nobody else can be making money on it, I guess.
So I'm just trying to get the differences between two sides here and like what.
You're going from extreme to extreme here.
I know. I'm trying to get the differences. Like, why are we?
How come you don't talk?
I do sometimes.
Jean Paul, go ahead. Go ahead, Jean Paul.
Okay, well, I was told. Now, did your family? You guys bought out the Dutch Frontier? Is that correct? Is that what I heard?
Oh, my God. We went from...
Yeah.
What did
Yeah.
we go? What was it
We were
called?
talking about OnlyFans and girls posting
OnlyFans
nudes.
to the Dutch Frontier.
Yep.
Posting nudes on... okay. Yes, my daughter bought the Dutch Frontier.
That is awesome because that's one of my. Growing up, we'd try to go there at least once a year, and
It's
was,
a great place.
It is. It's so
and
nice.
she hired the same staff, and the previous owner, Buddy, stayed with her for... and she'll be excited. You can follow her on Instagram. She's the Duchess of Ducor now.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
so she's a Duchess of Ducor. But yeah, so they still use the same vendors. Buddy stayed around for 6 or 8 months to make sure that they had everything down. She bought all the recipes. So
Oh, that's awesome.
They've added a couple of things
Okay.
to the menu because before it was just a protein soup and salad. So they've added a couple of things to the menu that I think it enhances and makes it better. But yes, thank you for
Nice.
that.
Yeah,
Wow,
just a little
I'm
switch
talking
up.
to him.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and another thing I wanted to question you about the overpopulation of prisons right now because we were talking about it earlier.
There's no overpopulation. They let everybody out. They're
So
living
that's
on
what
your
it is.
street.
Then they're
Yeah.
trying to push it that everything's over. That
Nobody
it's
goes to
overpopulated.
prison anymore.
They're just letting everyone
Ask
out.
your
then.
sheriff. You guys should have Donnie Youngblood on.
Donnie Youngblood.
That would be a great one.
That's a cool name.
It is a very cool.
You
name.
should have Donnie Youngblood on. He'll tell you about overpopulations. There's no overpopulation of prisons. You
'Cause
guys
that's-
you're getting your information on TikTok.
Well, no,
Go visit
exactly.
the prisons. I'll get you into the prisons if you want to go visit the prisons. They're not overpopulated.
Really?
Yeah, no.
Because I feel like that's what I've heard for years is, oh yeah, the prison system that's so overpopulated. That's what they're letting all these people out.
AB 209, 57, and 47, those propositions that passed over the last 8 years, our prisons are not overpopulated. They are closing down prisons because they don't have enough. There's not enough revenue. Every prisoner inside a prison, you get so much money for that prisoner. There's not enough resources going to prison, so they're closing them down and consolidating them.
Wow. See, just hearing two polar opposite sides of it. Then hearing that, I actually heard this from a college professor up at BC that he went to Cal Berkeley. He was a ex-felon, and he's really been pushing for prison reform and all this stuff. And he's just been saying that, oh yeah, the prisons are so overpopulated they're letting one out, but obviously that's not true.
Well, it's not true now. It was true, I think, 6 years ago. They did
Okay.
have a lot of prison overpopulation, and during COVID, they let a lot out. And then also with Prop 47 and 57, they let a lot out. So now they're actually closing prisons. And they're closing fire camps up north specifically, but there's just not enough prisoners in there.
Wow.
That's the other thing with TikTok, though. It's like you get one news source. You're only seeing the left side. If I lean left, I'm only going to see left information.
That's why
So,
you
like,
have to
there's
have
so many different
balance.
stories.
Yeah.
There's always different sides to it. That's why it's so confusing and misinformation. You just said like
It's like
that's
Twitter.
incorrect. It's not even there.
Like Twitter. I mean, you can have one side, but also have the other side. So people can go, oh, well, that makes sense, or that doesn't make sense, or whatever the issue is. You have two sides, but the one side is blocked continuously, or more so, the right side is blocked, or the right wing or the right side, and not right or wrong, but right side is blocked more than the left, and you can't have a difference of opinion or dialogue.
Well, like on my TikTok, I get more of like right wing stuff. Like it's not like I'm still getting like fed right wing information. Like that's why I think it's so divisive. It's like people are only hearing one side of the story. Like I only hear stuff from the right. People only hear one stuff from the left, and like then they have a conversation like this, and they're getting completely different sources based on the same facts or based on the same thing that we're talking about, but they're different opinions.
But you should be able to have different opinions. Take the border crisis, right? So you got all these border states and border cities that are really struggling with people coming across the border illegally in droves. I mean, 2 million, 2.5 million so far this year, more than any other time. I think it's 2.5 million, 2.7 million, something like that. And then you have red state governors that are busing them to New York. And New York governors and, the New York City mayor was all like, oh, we should let people in and there shouldn't be a process and the whole bit. And we should welcome everybody. And now that they're coming to New York, he's like, wait a minute, this is not working. The same thing with Martha's Vineyard when they flew him into Martha's Vineyard. I
saw that.
Yeah.
I
the
mean, when you
video.
think about it, so it's got to work for everybody, right? And to me, as a Republican, there's a process and a way to come to this country. Country should have sovereign borders. Like we should be able to say, if you go to Europe, like when I was in Germany, you didn't go from one country to the next without going through, even in East Berlin, you went through checkpoint Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. There was a process. You had to have a Berlin travel order. There was a process to go into another country. There's a process to come in and out of countries. We should have that same process. And we do have an immigration process that allows people to provide or apply for immigration status or asylum status. You just don't come over here and come into our country without a process, if that makes sense. Now, that's how I feel. There's a lot of people that think that border should be open and we should eliminate the border altogether. But who do we know that's in our country, and does it change the values of America and where our country's been and where it's going? I mean, if American citizens are not making decisions that have gone through citizenship, that understand the history of our country, if we're not making decisions, or the next generation is not making those decisions, and it's people that are from other countries are bringing their ideology here, how does that change America? Especially when there's no process to get here. And those are conversations nobody likes to have. Nobody likes to have the issue of abortion brought up. I talk about it a lot. People, they laughed. I go, my eyelash lady the other day I was talking, she says, why are you opposed to Prop 1? Well, Proposition 1 allows you to have termination of a pregnancy up until the day of birth. Up until the day of birth.
That's Prop 1.
That's Prop 1.
So you're about to give birth to a child, you can just kill it?
Yes.
Wow.
Prop 1 allows you to do termination of a pregnancy. They made it a big selling point, like it's, because they overturned Roe versus Wade, we have to solidify our constitutional rights. There is no change in California law. California law allows you to have an abortion. It's with restrictions. You do have restrictions, like 24 weeks. After 24 weeks, you have to have a doctor. You can't just go to a Planned Parenthood. You have to go to a doctor. But Proposition 1 lets you to have it up until a woman's right to choose all the way up to the day of birth with no restrictions. It's abortion without restrictions.
That's awful.
So people don't like to have that conversation. But I think, when I talk to, my lash lady, she's very, very pro-choice. And she says, how come you're opposing this? And I go, because it's all the way up into she goes, that isn't. She goes, once you detect the heartbeat. And I'm like, well, you're even further left or you're further right than the average, Democrat, because they say 24 weeks. So it's just a conversation. And when you read the ballot proposition, it says, contraception and a woman's right to choose, basically about, the right to their own bodies. But it doesn't tell you that it's up until birth. But that's a pretty tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, see, it's like all the woke stuff. Like you say something in front, like, oh, you don't want a girl to have her own choice in her body, but then it's also all the
my
things
body,
that
my choice,
entails.
all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
but there has to be a limitation.
No, yeah, without a doubt. Do you think it should be kind of like Texas with the 8 weeks?
So I am 100% pro-life, but again, California is going to be the most left-leaning. I don't know any state that's going to allow you to have abortion without any restrictions. And there's a bill that passed the legislature, 2223, and that allows you to have abortions or no investigations of, they call it fetal death, no investigations of fetal death during a perinatal period. Well, a perinatal period, depending on the definition, the World Health Organization says it's 28 days. Other people say California Medical Association says it's 7 days after birth. So there's no investigation during that time period for the perinatal period. But that needs to be defined. But nobody wants to have those conversations because you immediately get attacked that you're trying to attack a woman's right to her own body choices. And that's not what Republicans are trying to do. And they say that, Republicans didn't speak out or they didn't, they kind of danced around this issue. I think it's an issue that we should have talked about because, I saw the look on both your faces when Prop 1 extends it to the day of birth. The day of birth.
Yeah, it should not happen.
When COVID hit, we had 2 grandbabies born, and we weren't allowed to be in the room, right? Mm-hmm. They wouldn't let people in the room. And so I threatened my son-in-law with the inch of his life, you better get photographs. And he has this great photo of our grandson. It was just like this, and the photo was taken, like seconds, right?
Yeah.
And I love him to death for it because it's a beautiful photo. Mm-hmm. 2 seconds before that photo, maybe 5. Let's go 30.
Okay.
30 seconds just for case of argument before that photo was taken. That life could have been terminated under the new Prop 1. That's a scary thing for California, to me.
Anybody who's doing that, though, that's a murderer. Like, you're killing the kid. Like, the kid's about to come out, you're going to kill it.
Oh, my God, you're like a right-wing Republican.
Well, no, the kid's formed. He's already formed. Or he or she or it or what.
But the Democrats think that that's still a fetus.
Yeah, no, that's...
And the fetus is not... if the fetus, it's still under the woman's control. But nobody wants to have those conversations. So I challenge you guys, bring people on. Get some of those activist Democrats that are in our community. I don't want to give her any kudos, but I'll give you her name privately. You guys reach out. She'd come on your show. And you guys, you think... if you guys did this, if you brought this person on the show, she is... I don't know how you'd even handle it, but you guys, I think she'd stump you every step of the way because you'd just be shocked at how she thinks. So, and she's the activist in the party that is pushing that party to the left. I got to fix my headset. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Okay.
So it's like I said earlier, like they changed what's valuable, like what really matters. They're changing like traditional values.
Yeah.
You can say even to the minute of conception that the kid you can't kill the kid, right? If you're a religious person, but if you want to reject religion, then you have really you have nothing to fall back on. So you kind of create your own value system.
It's constitutional too. The Constitution says, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If a politician is not going to protect your life, they're not going to protect your property or your pursuit to happiness. And people say, oh, it's about choice. You say vaccine choice. How come this isn't a choice? Because you're dealing with 2 lives here. To me, it's 2 lives. It's 2 separate lives. Most people, I'm pro-life, just say that. Number one, I have a pro-life 100% record. But most people believe there has to be some type of compromise. Now, the person that I just talked to you about possibly bringing on, she thinks she should be able to do the perinatal period. Like, 28 days after the baby's born, something happens to it, nobody should be able to investigate you as a mother. That's what that says, right? No investigation. There's no coroner's investigation. It doesn't say you can kill it. You kill it. It just says that there can be no investigation if it dies in the perinatal period. So she adamantly supports that. Where I think that conception, at conception, I think at conception, that baby is alive and God has a plan for it. That's just me. But there are a lot of people that we could go, and I try to tell my right friends this. If there was compromise, 24 weeks, 12 weeks, 8 weeks, heartbeat, whatever it is, think about the lives that would be saved if you just had some type of compromise in that arena. Now, when this goes public, I'll get beat the heck out of by the right over that statement.
Yeah.
But it's incremental. But they made a big deal in this election cycle about Roe versus Wade being overturned, and all that did was relegate it back to the states. It's not a federal issue anymore. So Alabama will have something different than, California. Alabama had something different on the LGBT issue. Was it Alabama? I think it was, or Georgia.
You're talking about like the Don't Say Gay bill?
No, that was they
Florida.
made that they made that Florida. Some state, I think it's Alabama or Georgia. She'll look it up for me right now. We'll have it before the end of the podcast. But they if you're a child coming out or whatever the terminology is, your parents can take you to counseling and say, you were born a boy, you're a boy, and all that. California just says that that's a violation of the law. There is a new law in California that allows the state of California to actually take custody of that child in Georgia or Alabama, what state it is, and bring it to California and have sex change operations and all that stuff, and then send the child back. So if you have parents that are divorced or separated. So there's a lot of controversy that California is engaging in, and people aren't talking about it. You're not hearing it on TikTok. You're not hearing it on, and I know these are social issues, but there's also, fiscal impact issues. Like, the government's going to tell you how much you can pay an employee, right? And I know there's minimum wage standards set, but there's a new council that's set, and it went after In-N-Out, and Chick-fil-A is who they went after. And they're saying that this council is going to come together and determine wages, hours, and working conditions for those industries, for those people. Well, Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out should be able to determine, if they offer you a job and they're going to pay you $20 an hour, $15 an hour, and you don't want to work there, don't work there.
Yeah.
That's your choice, right? But you can't come in and have big government behind you and going, they say you have to pay me $22.50 and you have to give me sick days and this day and that day and all these things, and now you have to hire me, and if you don't hire me, it's discrimination because I have government on my side. That's not right. So I think those things are things that need to be discussed, whether they're social issues or regular issues.
Well, that's why people leave California. They take their businesses and leave.
Yeah.
You look at Elon Musk, go to Texas,
Yeah.
build his factories out there. Don't they see that though?
Hewlett Packard, there's a lot of companies.
Don't they see that happening? Like the stuff they're pushing, the stuff they're trying to get past, don't they see all the businesses trying to leave California because of that exact reason?
No, because the ones that are staying are very, very beneficial to their campaign contributions.
That's right. Okay. So that's when you go into like lobbyists and stuff.
Yes. The people that are staying, a lot of people that are staying. Elon Musk, they tried to unionize him over and over. They filed lawsuits. They couldn't do it. And when he leaves, they don't care. He doesn't participate in their, campaign contributions, help them keep elected.
So where do you say that goes? Like the majority of that money is coming from Silicon Valley?
A lot of it comes from Silicon Valley. A lot of it comes from union organizations. A lot of it comes from public employee pension, public employee unions, California Police Officer Association. A lot of it comes from like the municipalities, like the utilities like PG&E in Southern California, Edison, that need certain things to be successful. For instance, the governor campaigned on shutting down Diablo nuclear power plant, right? And he gave PG&E $5 billion of taxpayer money to shut down the plant. Then he realized he needs a plant, so he gave PG&E $5 billion, and PG&E's like, we're not going to reinvest in the plant. And he gave him $5 billion or $8 billion to keep it open. So, it's all a transactional money game, if that makes sense. Yeah. And if you follow the money, it's really interesting.
All right, what are we doing here on time here?
I have no
123.
idea.
123. Okay.
Yeah.
You're a busy person.
idea.
You're a busy person. I want to close this off here because I think we talked a lot today. I think we talked about a lot of issues, but how do you get people to trust government, like to trust your system of government, and to put trust in the system again? Like how can you make America better? How can you make California better? How can you make your district better?
You know what? So I'm not going to say I haven't figured that out yet. You know, we try to convey truth, right? Truth, and just, you know, talk about things that are hard to talk about. You know, I don't know one Democrat that's not sick of the homeless population, and they have no idea that the governor spent $54,000 per tent of their money, right? They're like, what? You're kidding, right? The same issue with Prop 1. You know, she had no idea that it was up until conception, or excuse me, up until birth. That you could terminate a life. So we have to have these hard conversations, because when you have these hard conversations, and if you're not screamed or shouted out or drowned it out, or those kinds of things that you really run into from the cancellation, you know, people on both sides, if you're not screamed or shouted out, then you can have a dialogue and people really start to understand what the issue is. So that's what I think we need to do, is we need to start having dialogues. You guys have a podcast of younger generation. I talk to colleges and high schools and things like that. Because we want to make sure. I go to the Telugu community. I go to the Punjabi community. I met a group of Punjabi people up in Sacramento at a naturalization service, and I said, "Oh, your Punjabis are different than mine. Mine are, you know, small business owners. They're truck drivers. They're farmers. They're ranchers. Oh, no, we're all the same. We're all the same. Well, they don't believe in this and this and this." And he says, "Well, we don't either." And it's like, "Well, why do you have a tent that says Democrats, you know, Punjabis for Democrats, or Democrats for Punjabis, or whatever?" And Senator Pan's staffer came over to me, a Democrat, powerful Democrat, came over to me and says, "You can leave now." And I'm like, "No, I'm not done," right? And so we had a conversation, and by the time I got done, those people kind of packed up and walked away, packed up all their stuff, because they realized that what I was saying with the Democrat Party I supported, what the staffer came back and said, why don't you tell them about your immigration policy? I support exactly what's happening here today. People that have gone through a citizenship test, they've taken an oath to this country, they've become citizens, and I register, whatever party you want to register in. But you don't not have a conversation. You don't not have a conversation. You let parents participate in education, right? And if parents have a problem with what's being taught in school, parents should have an opinion on that. It shouldn't just be taken away from them and children are forced to go to a public school system. You guys, you had options, right? Your parents put you in Garces, and you probably went to private schools, even when you were younger. Before Garces, you went to private schools, Catholic schools. So you have an upbringing or a foundation that makes you think differently than some of your friends that didn't have that same upbringing or foundation. So it's all about society and how you're surrounded with, but we need to get out and have more of those conversations. When they came out and said that Republicans wanted to put a ban on abortion, we should all stand up and said, that's not true. But they wouldn't do it because they're afraid of their right. But there needs to be some type of discussion where then when they lie, I mean, Joe Biden gets on television and says, you know, my inflation reduction plan saved, you know, is going to reduce electricity costs. That's a lie. That's a lie. So we just have to start bringing truth to both sides of the argument. And we're just as bad sometimes as the Democrats, but the left on the Democrat side is really, really bad.
So honest dialogue and being
honest
open-minded.
dialogue. And you guys are doing that right here.
Well, I appreciate that. But do you have a favorite song that we can play to close out?
You probably wouldn't know my favorite song.
What?
So my husband and I's favorite song is Last Date by Floyd Kramer.
Last Date.
It's just a piano.
It's okay.
It's just a romantic song, and old people are the only ones that would understand it.
Guys, be open-minded. And you know what? If you don't, go screw yourself.
Have a conversation.
Here we go.
Isn't that a great dance song? It's a waltz. They don't even know what a waltz is.
Thank you for listening.
Here's where he twirls me,
Oh,
and then he brings me in for a kiss. That's a romantic
That's beautiful.
piano song.
I feel like I'm in a
It's
movie.
our generation.
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
Thank you
for
guys.
coming
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.